Yep.
Yep. Thank you so much. So good morning,
There
everyone.
are 3 people entering the waiting room. Those messages are coming.
Yeah, you can admit them.
Sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah. So good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. So, we are really excited about today's sessions. We have, more or less coincidentally, we have the TailwindCSS and the design system session that is linked up. And we are really looking forward to, hosting you all and having a really great time during this August meetup. So, coming to Coimbatore Frontend group, so this is an introduction we usually do. So, since it's online videos, right? So just for the sake of repetition, like since you're repeating it in every meetup, so I just wanted to ensure we convey the message why we do it, since it goes by video, right? So when we post it on YouTube, some people may not be aware of the community. So we help, people know about the community by giving the short introduction. So Coimbatore Frontend Group has been active since 2019, and we have been regularly posting sessions to help the front-end developers and the design people, learn and grow along with the community members. So it has been really great. It has been a great experience for us organizers to build a community around Coimbatore. But after the pandemic, we got the opportunity to expand globally, and we have been welcoming people from all over the world to join us and be a part of the community and learn and grow together. So today we have Ashok, who has already hosted a previous session as well. So if you haven't heard about him, he's a really popular person among the front end developers. So he's active, and you can follow him up on LinkedIn, where you would be able to even catch him for any chats you might want to have. And so Ashok will be speaking about design systems, which is a very critical thing in today's world. So front end, the most fuzzy part about front end is managing and scaling, right? So essentially, design system is what helps you make it much more easier and efficient. So Ashok, please take
Hey
over.
everyone. Yeah, thanks for that introduction. I mean, that was unique in itself. So this specifically is based on a case study which I did in Naukri, and the idea there was to, we had around 15 to 16 teams where we were trying to develop product, and the problems start happening when you scale any team from 5 to 10 people to just 100 and 200 people. What those things do to your application is that it start very parallel development on various things, which is very hard to manage. And lots of people are doing this individual component development on their own based on the design they are given. It is most likely to happen that they end up duplicating most of it. So we sort of thought through it, and we sort of figure it out that let's create and invest some time. Let's take a step back and try to make that designer and front-end developers gap a little bit shorter, so that they both can come to one specific place for any specific inspiration and any specific component selection into the whole design system and into the whole development system. So this is all about that only. So before I actually get started, I'll just want to have a little bit of an agenda, what it's supposed to be and what we'll be talking about in this. So this is going to be a little bit introduction that what design systems are in general. I also talk about that why we thought that there is a need in the company to have a design system. And I'll also talk about those specific pain points where you can see that when is that particular right time when you see within your team or within your company that, okay, this is the time when we start building the one. So when you have that idea, there would be certain challenges, like people would not, may not be that much in line with your opinion or your views on it. So I'll also give you a few little tips that how you should approach that challenge, how you should talk about those challenges within the team, outside the team, and also take up that idea so that you can make sure that people who more inclined to numbers, they can see a value in it. And then when you have that particular discussion done, I'll also give you a little bit of hints and information that how you should get started to build one. And while building those specific things, because this is going to be an iterative process, you're not going to finish the whole design system in one specific timeline, no matter how big your timeline is going to be. So just two few things which you can keep in your mind while you pretty much starting over there for your design system and everything else around that. So a little bit about me. I am a happens to be a Google developer expert, specifically on web technologies. As of now, I work as a VP engineering in Dhani, and most times job and most of my time is goal is to making those decisions that what should goes in production and what should not. I don't do that much development in my main role, but I have a lot of other stuff which I'm pretty much engaged to do the development. Also, apart from that, I also have one of my own community called All About Web. We hosted a couple of events over there, but as if now we are very limited in terms of what we are offering over there. So let's get started with the very first thing, that what the design system. So generally, when we talk about a design system, it consists a lot of stuff. Okay, so it could be your design language, it could be your visual language, it could be a pattern library or a shared library or some component library which you have created to cater your front end stuff. It could be a style guide which you can generate across the company or maybe across the product, where you have that common stuff in a style guide, that how your text supposed to look, what are the colors you're going to use, how your depth, shadow, border radius, and all those specific stuff going to work in a design. That kind of utility if you create, that's also come as a part of design system only. There are other stuff to it, like you can also have include brand guideline to it. Those brand guidelines will define you the sentiment of your specific design. They can define the color schemes, they can define the typography, they can define how you design or draw icons for your company and stuff like that. So these are going to be the part of design system in general. Content style guide is very similar to style guide, but rather having a good information about individual schematics. Contents gives you a stuff which helps you to build your content mechanism inside the company, like what the emotion needs to be go out, how the social media post needs to be right, how images and their content gonna be affected, how website content will be written and shown. So all those specific things is somehow part of this whole design system. So that's why it's called a system, because it's not just one specific entity. It contains a lot of stuff. So if we talk about design language in general, we can say material design is a design language, so where you have a lot of thought process that what means what, and how these things can accumulate together and give you an idea that how you can go around and thought process when you start your project, how the design gonna work, and how the development and interaction on top of those design gonna work. The other example of a good design system is from Spotify. So they also have created these guidelines and design stuff. If you're building your own, it would be a good spot to go start and look at that. I mean, they're more into a very focused one. So this material language is a very generic design system which can be implemented to any project, can be utilized and customized based upon your requirement. But this one is going to be a little bit into that particular zone where the customization is a little bit brand focused. So you can see that change over there when you go through all these two. Then MailChimp have a very good content style guide if you are into content style and all that. What your routing goals, voice and tone, all those specific stuff which directly relates to your content can be put into the content style guide, and the MailChimp's content style guide is a good starting point if you're trying to set a tone for overall content generation in the company or for a product or for a brand specifically. And then we have these brand guidelines, which I have a good example from Dribble, that they have give this media kit out, so everybody knows how to use their logo, how to use their color schemes, what font sizes they recommend, what font they recommend, and all those specific stuff that comes as a brand guideline, which you can involve and give out to people, or maybe use this utility to create a process inside your company where if somebody is going to use your logo somewhere, or going to start a new project in terms of design or in terms of front end development, they can come here and see that if everything is aligned to that. So this could be a source of truth for your brand guidelines and everything else around that. Then the next thing in the design specific space, design system space, is called pattern library. So I have just taken a screenshot of material because they also provide a component library, which we can call a pattern library. So this will help you visualize that how an individual component and how an individual item into that particular whole design system gonna look, behave, and feel. So when you design or develop that specific piece of component, you can have those nitty-bitty stuff around that available. If I talk about a whole the example of a whole design system, so Salesforce has a very good one. They have written down and puts a lot of effort to prepare this whole documentation around that, how that's supposed to be. It would be a good idea to look at it before, when you start building your own design system. So by giving us all of those, what I understood so far, and what I understood, by researching a little bit in the direction that it's all a reusable component which have very clear and defined standards, which can be assembled together, and you can just build application out of it. So this is what is important for individuals and people working in a team, or maybe when you talk about the companies in general, that having that library with you for backend and front end, for front end and designers both, that would help speed up the stuff a lot. But we also have to think about the other aspect to it, and that is when you define those boundaries in terms of having the component library and pattern library, it should not kill the creativity of the design. So you also need to see a balance into it, that how much area of thinking or area of improvement designers can have when they are doing and building those individual components or individual screens, and how much boundary your FE team is restricted when they are implementing those specific aspect to it. If these two people are left alone, then there would be a chaos, and that's what I see in most of my career. So the next thing is why you need one. So let me give you a little bit of background to it, that why we thought of thinking that we need a design system. So The first thing is it does immediately is increase your confidence for delivery or for making the product look good across the platform, have symmetry, and speed up your development process a lot. Design and development both process a lot. So that in turns build a lot of confidence when you try to start a new project or try to think about building a new project. You have that commit clear cut understanding that what are the components will be required, how these components gonna stitch together, how the business logic gonna flow from one component to another. And from design to development process, that confidence is not only with you, but it's with your everybody in the team. So that makes the delivery faster. uh, the next thing is that is also encourages contribution within the organization. So most of the time it happens in the FE or maybe in a tech world that when I'm trying to use a particular utility either from the company or either from GitHub, I always see who developed it, and we sort of give them a credit most of the time. So that encourages people to put more stuff into that library and improve the existing ones, because that's the motivation they have. If that motivation is not there, open source would not have existed at all. So I think having that component library in place and having that design system in place, it's also encourages people within the team to pretty much come and contribute on top of that. This just a minute. Okay, just a minute. I think I have. I think I've accidentally opened a different one.
And meanwhile, Ashok just shows which side he's on Marvel versus DC.
No, no. So this Marvel stuff is completely. So I accidentally created two versions of the same slide. Okay, and I think the one which I have shared was not presented. Okay. Yeah, I found the right one. Yes. Yes, this is it. So where was we? We were somewhere here. I think these both are merged somewhere. Okay, let me continue. Yeah, sorry for that interruption. So this also helps you to reduce cost. I mean, when we talk about in general, when we take less time to develop a product, that in turn result having reduce in cost, because everybody works on that product or that particular utility or that particular component comes to a cost. So this also helps you reduce costs. It also helps you to amplify the culture, like how you're building one product and how you're going with one product. That gives everybody a sense of culture where they're working it. That okay, this is the way our logo gonna look. This is the way our shadows and our round corner works. This is the way our typography works. So this develop a culture within the company that when people talk about design and related stuff, they relate those specific aspect of it within the culture which is being developed. And so that sort of I mean, if I have to summarize this, it helps engineers to empower and build with the confidence. It helps you within the cross team empathy, which encourages people to put a lot of stuff into that particular design system at all. It's also reduced cycles of legal and marketing. So I think these are the information which I had on those slides which are missing as of now. Sorry for that. So this helps pretty much reduce those legal marketing cycles, which also reduce the time taken to on the developments, which also help you in the cost and stuff. It helps you to define that principle which generate that culture, which I talked about earlier. It helps you minimize duplication. It helps amplifies your design driven approach, thought process, and culture. And in general, it reduces the cost of building product. So the next chapter is how do you identify that you should need a design system, and how to approach that particular problem to investigate within our product or within our company to figure it out. Do we really need a design system, or it's good as we are going as of now? So when you see that your team is going to split into multiple teams and you are going to take care of multiple products, so when that change you start looking at, that's where it's going to have a lot of technical and design depth on your plate on an engineering side. So what I generally do in that scenario is I create two pipeline. One is completely for product, which we do the product development and have highest priority. And parallelly, I also start engineering pipeline where some specific stuff which I want to do and team wants to do just to make their life and their day-to-day development easy. So those specific things may not translate a direct benefit towards the stuff, but those things can help you go along the way smoothly. So I think when you see that trend started happens, that you now moving from a bigger team, smaller to a bigger team, you're moving from a one product to multiple product, or you are starting seeing that there are cluster of teams getting formed inside your product, or maybe in your the whole structure which you have in your company. So that's where you should start thinking about it. So the reason why that is important is this is a graph which tells you that how many people are there and how much communication points they have. So if you see when we increase the people from 3 to 5, the number of connection points has grown just double. And this is the pattern happens everywhere else. So when you increase people in your team, it not only increase the number of people over there, but it also increases the way they needed to communicate exponentially. And that's a challenge which pose to have lots of information getting missed inside those discussion. Most of the time people are not able to communicate the way they're supposed to be, because this is very hard. Like if I have to scale this particular graph for 100 people, I don't think it would be able to have that all those connection line visible anymore. So that's the scenario there. Like when we scale team, communication becomes difficult. And it's also hell when you see that there are started a trend of knowledge silos, like people really not that much aware of the stuff going on or how to solve them. When those things started to happen, and there is a one guy in the company who knows everything and everybody is going to him for understanding the stuff, that how things works, what service I need to call and what component I have to use and stuff like that. So when you start see those specific stuff started happening, that would be a good time to pretty much think about that you should be thinking to implement a design system or put a system in place specifically to reduce these specific stuff. So this is a I like this graph a lot, because most of the time when we talk about a product development or any engineering project, we think of, okay, it's going to start here and it's going to finish here, but underneath the story it's something like this. Okay, you go through all those zigzags, curvy paths to reach that finish line. It's not a straight path all the time. So to have this particular thing over there, this is because of those knowledge silos and those specific people having one people or few people in the company having understanding of everything, and everybody is talking to them and going to them to understand how they can finish or maybe complete their goal on that particular moment. So this start to happen. Then it also helps you develop consistency. When you see that your applications are not getting consistent, they are so like let me give an example on this. When I joined Naukri on that particular time, Naukri.com in the Info Edge. So Info Edge has around 5 to 6 products. Naukri.com, 99 Acres, Siksha, and there's a matrimonial site as well. So every product looks completely different. Every specific component, every specific style look completely different. And if you look at companies like Google or Microsoft, their individual product, while looking at the product, you could tell that this may be from the Google, because they have developed that consistency from all across this product. So if you want that kind of consistency, it only be possible through a design system which work across every product you have in the company. So when you start looking at that you need consistency and anything else inside your project, that would be a good idea to get started with design system. So when you see that lots of the stuff is getting duplicated inside your project, like people are working on the same stuff multiple times, or multiple people are working on the same stuff in multiple teams or maybe in multiple directions. So this happens because of two reasons. One is people less likely to communicate and talk about what they are building if you don't have a system in place which records all this activity, and that is very hard to do. And the other thing is, when they don't have a central source of truth where they can go and find out all those things. So having that information with only one person would also not result in good. So that's where we start, building those systems in place where people can go and look for a component before they can start building it, or people can look and see that how one things can happen from that guideline which we have created, which we can include as a part of our design system. So when you see that trend started happening, that would be a cue to understand that, okay, let's talk about design system and let's start thinking of it. The next chapter is, okay, now you know that you need a design system. You have your regions, you have everything with you. You did the research, you figured it out. Okay, this is how it's going to be done. This is what sort of things I'll be needing. And you also prepare a plan around that. The next idea is how to sell it, like how you can make everybody talk about it, contribute it, and tell everybody else to do the same. So first of all, I would suggest that you should expect a pushback, because what happens is when you're going to say to the people that, okay, you are want to build a design system, people would pretty much come back to you and say that, okay, these are the products pipeline. We are building these amazing features and those are on highest priority. I mean, let's not talk about doing anything apart from that. Let's just finish whatever we have on the product pipeline. And as you all can relate to it, this is what happening, like this product pipelines will never be somewhere that it's not filled with a lot of stuff. I mean, your backlog would never clear in that scenario. So you're not able to do any engineering task or any design task or anything apart from those building those and shipping those features around those products. So expect a pushback on that scenario, because there are stuff which are more important, and there are stuff which people think will not help them in a direct, what is called the direct liquidity of it. But in general, you have to tell them that what overall stuff it's going to do to you and what overall benefits will be achieving. So we'll talk about those specific stuff in this one. So first of all, what you should do is you should gather the data from, so whatever project management tool and whatever other efficient way you are maintaining that information in your project, you should gather some information about design is consistency, that okay, header in one product look different or one place look different, or there are various fonts being used which suppose not to, or there are too many colors being used across the product. Every project, if every product, every page look different, or every product have any specific stuff on top of it, just gather those information and put one specific place so that you have all the inconsistencies in your product. The next effort you should do is find out how many hours your team had spent coding one particular component, which results having two separate development for the same stuff. That's a duplicate effort you can find out. And that would be very easy to do if you have a product management tool, because you have all those stories and all those, tasks people have done so far, and you can go through it and figure it out where they look similar or they have exactly similar. They maybe came on two different pages, but people started two different pages together and they have built the same component twice. So these kind of effort you can find out over there. You can also look for that how efficient your design, development, and QA process is, and some specific points around those. So you can be looking at stuff like how much time it take to convert one design to a screen, how much time QA needs to understand that particular screen and and test it the way it's supposed to be, and how many bugs arise after that because of these inconsistencies, because of these duplicate effort, because of these not having a clear and concise information and understanding about standards which it's supposed to have. So gather those information, put it one place, and then you start building advocates. Now you have the problems that okay, these are the problems within our product, how we can solve it. So you just float that idea around everybody. Okay, like tell them that these are the 5 things which needed to be done in a way that it should not hamper the existing stuff, but we needed to think about it. So that will create some advocates internally. There would be full people who are also facing and having the similar challenges, the similar challenge like you. They would come on board and they will help you out to build more advocates. So just start floating the idea within your team, so your team can align with those specific design systems or those specific problems, and they have a common solution at the end of the day. So it's very similar approach. You are the one in the center who think that design system is needed. Then you talk few more people and tell them, okay, I think design system is needed. What your opinion about it? And just tell them all those specific data you have gathered. They may have some specific advocates which can tell them, yeah, that I'm aligned with that. The next thing is train those advocates of their understanding and what other stakeholders are, and they can share that information with other stakeholders and other team members so that they can build more advocates. So it's a process where you build some advocates, now they are building more advocates. So it's a kind of chain reaction which you can create within the company. So everybody can talk about the same thing, and that would create a mental pressure inside everybody that okay, these are the challenges, these are the problems. And I'm not talking about you could use this to do anything. What I'm saying is there are certain benefit attached to it which you have already researched and discovered, and now you're trying to propagate it within everybody's opinion, so that it does not have in that particular sense that okay, it's something you are forcing or something you are trying to put on top of everybody. So when you're talking to developers, I also kind of trying to give you here some talking points. So that would help them to understand how much less time they need when they're figuring out that what component in terms of UI to use. They also not going to refactoring a lot of code, because there would be a common shared stuff which everybody will be using. So if refactor happens in a one component, that would either be backward compatible or not, and based on that they can make that decision, either they want to make that change live within across the product or that one component which they have modified it for. So less time refactoring the code. It's also going to help them implement consistency, which is very important, because when people move from one teams to another, if consistency is not there, there would be a cycle where they'll be needing a little bit of time to understand your specific flow. I mean, it could be a good example to understand that uh, 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 there are certain way to develop a product which every company and every product optimize it based on their need. So every time we or anybody else go to one company to another, they need at least 10 to 15 days to become productive, and that should not happen within the company. So if you don't have if you have inconsistency within your product, then that challenge is going to be there. If it's not, then it's not going to take that 10-15 days for people from other team to come and understand and start being productive. Next thing is you can also tell them that how using those components and those specific libraries is going to make their life easy. You can create sandbox, you can create prototypes around them, share them with your team, and tell them, okay, see, the thing which you are doing as of now, this could have been done like this, and this would make your life way easier and stuff like that. And also, because you have already discovered all those specific inconsistencies, just point out those with your team or with the people you are discussing these specific item to, like how your product have 50 variants of blue multiple places, how your product have 5 and 6 font styles, how your product have inconsistent names, like sometime you call it login, some places you call it sign in, and stuff like that. So you can point out those specific stuff there. And if you talk about business, the discussion will be completely different. So you can talk and tell them that this is going to help you to save a lot of money, because it's going to reduce the cost a lot in terms of development. It's also help them to provide a better customer experience, because when you develop a design system, you also develop a content system along with that, and that helps you to name stuff in a way that it's consistent everywhere. Like if you are going with login and sign in approach, or register and maybe uh, uh, sign in or register or log in or sign up, something like that, that naming convention will be consistent everywhere in your product, because people will be referring to those documents when they'll be developing those specific aspect to it. So the customer experience will become a little bit better, because you are saying the same label, having the same label and same naming convention everywhere across your product. It's also help in reducing the inconsistencies which we have already discovered in the product and figured it out. So those things would be reduced, and that could be a good thing for a business people to understand. Okay, yeah, my product is not inconsistent, and that's a good idea, because if their product gonna look completely different from one another and from one page to another, that would result having a lot of not having a good brand impact, because branding is something which builds around those specific aspect to it. So that's where it's going to help. And you can also, because you have already researched from that tool that how much time the duplicate effort happens, you can pinpoint exactly how much hours your team had spent to rewrite those specific logic, or maybe having duplicate stuff over there. uh, so hours now versus hour at a scale. That's a good point, because when we are 3 to 4 people in the team, that may not have that much visibility that how this how is gonna be translated. But if you use that graph which I've shown earlier about those talking points and all, that where you can build something to show that how when your team gonna be bigger, how these specific normal inconsistencies and inconsistent hours and the cost gonna be exponentially bigger based on the team which we have. You can also model out a little bit of like the cost realignment, that where your cost going to be when you scale to a bigger team. What would be the stuff? Either you're going to have invest a lot of stuff in onboarding, making people making sure that people before they onboard the product they have everything they need to understand and get and become productive. Are you going to be in a little bit a smoother approach where you onboard the people, get their hands dirty on the product, and they can learn along the way. So these are the stuff you can align that, because that's end up having a little cost towards the maintenance and maintainability of the product. And the first approach where you just train them fully and then be available in the product, that would having reduced cost in terms of maintainability and everybody else. I mean, the piece of code they ship, that would have some certain advantage to it. And also you can show the byproduct of building a design system, that what you get when you start building this particular stuff. Like you get a component library, you get a clear concise content style guide, you get a clear concise branding and style guide, so that people outside the company or maybe from the different team, they can pretty much use that to inline with everything which we talk about here. Okay, the next thing is to find the right person. So you need to find a person who have authority, and that's the only important thing here. So that can decide that, okay, this is the thing which I think we can push further and talk about it, and he have authority to make that push pretty much in line to what everybody else is doing. So finding that right person is very important when we make these such important decisions over there. You should talk the language. You should talk about technical and design depth. You can talk about the you should avoid using any technical jargons, because they eventually think and start repelling towards those. So just talk about the benefit for business and product, and talk about benefit for having less technical and design depth, how that can help smoother the every smoothen the process over there. You can also evaluate the trade-offs, like if we focus building a design system, what get delays and how much delay over there. Create a t-shirt side estimation. Okay, so t-shirt side estimation, if you're not aware of, it's something like you should label your estimation in small, medium, and large, rather than telling them a lot of details and stuff around those, because a large milestone or a small milestone, it's something which would be important to tell them initially, rather than telling them, okay, 1 day or 1 month, because that would gives you that flexibility to stretch between those t-shirt side estimations and t-shirt size milestones. So that's the thing. So next thing is how to build one. And so it's pretty much a life cycle, that how it works. So you start with seed, that you find out you need a design system, and then you discover that what all the areas where the implementation and improvements going to be. So this is the first stage in the design life cycle system. So you start with this, like identify the desire and increase of efficiency at your scale, that yeah, I needed a design system. Then you start conducting your research, you start collaborating with people, you pretty much start understanding the scope of your system and stuff like that. That's going to be your discovery phase. The activity you do in your discovery phase is you do UI UX audits, like you try to find out what is consistent, what is inconsistent. You can explore existing interaction and pain points. You can talk to people and try to understand, okay, what their pain points are when they either work on UI on UX layer, or they work on front end layer specifically. What sort of things they have with their pain points and they don't like doing. So those things can go and can list them out. Speak to users and think about. So I also kind of want people to, specifically people who work on front end and work on design, to do that user audit stuff. Like you can just bring in some people on board which are your customers, maybe for a day of, for a couple of hours or so. Or I mean, these days you can just get them online on a video chat or something, and just have a quick chat to understand how they understand your language of product. Like either they are able to understand the new change you have pushed, or is there something which they didn't like on your product and stuff like that. So those specific user interviews, those specific, user aspect to it is going to help you a lot of stuff, in a lot of stuff. It's going to get you a direction. People do tend to use a lot of matrices around those, and a lot of analytics via Google Analytics and other specific analytics tools. But I still like to talk to people and think about their emotions and think about their specific aspect of those specific screens, features, and flow which we have developed inside the product. So we should we should cater that particular thing by doing this user sessions, maybe once in a quarter or so. So we have a clear understanding that what we are shipping our user is liking it or not. You also need to understand a little bit of your business goals. You need to talk to the business people and try to understand what their goal is in terms of a product and how that design system gonna help you achieve that. So that would be one other criteria over there. And then you can have those specific thing in place and put us defined, determine the criteria of your major success. So either the design system is a successful or a failure. What are those criteria by which you're going to measure of it? So those things you need to put in place and maybe discover before you go any further. To do this activity, you should involve every stakeholders. Like you should think about talking and discovering everybody's need. And when everybody is involved, it's become a team project instead of yours alone. So who should be involved? Definitely there would be a core team. Like you have UX designers, you have motion designers, you have product managers, you have front end devs, you have content writers, you have visual designers. This is your core team, which pretty much helps to collaborate and contribute collaborate with you on the discovery phase. The next phase is framing. So I mean, when you discover that particular part and you have all those data and information with you, now you have to scope it out, prioritize it, create a strategy and techniques out of it, so you can have a clear and realistic path to move forward. So that would help you. Like it's just like, okay, the discussion of that product is done. Let's create Jira stories around that. I mean, that kind of stuff which you can do in the framing one. The activities you should do here is explore the technology and stack and tooling which you're going to use. Like either you're going to use material design or ANT design as a base of your design system, and specifically the component library side, and just build on top of it, or you're going to create everything from scratch. I mean, depending on those specific stuff, what are the tooling you are going to use, what language, either you're going to prefer TypeScript over JavaScript or something like that. So those specific things you should decide in the framing one. Evaluate the overall complexity, like how complex is whole system going to be, how you avoid those complexity in the first place. You also define a timelines, and you also scope out and put resources on top of it, like who will be working on what. uh, some of the things which you should do over here is like start fixing the design principles. So if you have some specific aspect of design system may be very fragmented and something like that. You just start stitching together to form a big one, and which have all those specific principle which you need inside the product. Um, just start creating stories, epics around those, and start prioritizing them, that what should be delivered first based on the research you have done or discovery phase. Okay, so business needs to have everywhere in the design to have consistent colors or maybe consistent font style. So those specific epics around those can go on a higher priority considered to the something which is related to something business does not want yet. So I mean, those should be in line in that way. And you also think about a strategy that, okay, when you build this design system, how you make people to adapt it, like how people gonna start using it, how easy that adaptation would be, and all those specific aspect around that. The next thing is you come to a solution, like, okay, so the research that you scoped it out, you have a clear solution, and you can start continuing with your test, and in a very first product, or maybe some specific product which is already there, maybe you're revamping and doing all those activity around that. What you do in this solution activity is you start building the design system, or you already build the design system and start using it for the first time. You start creating goals and anti-goals, like okay, what is the goal to measure success, and what is the goal to measure failure, all those specific aspects to it. You also start identifying your risk, okay, that what are the areas which we can put into the impediments list, that okay, if this does not happen, this is going to affect and stuff like that. And you also start collecting a lot of usability feedbacks from team, from people, from user, from various stakeholders. And you roll out your design system to one specific team or one specific product, and they are testing around it, messing with it as of now, just to implement it. And along the way, you also create a process to capture those specific issues people are facing and how they can contribute to make it better. So there are, so this solution process is going to continue, like this would be an iterative process. So you're going to identify new challenges on top of it, and then you redefine that goal and increase, and then think about in the next phase of solution, you talk about your goal priority, reprioritize them, and also you also think about increasing how you can increase the adoption, and how you can reorganize and team to spread out the knowledge. So this is very important. Like suppose you have started with 3 people who are working on design system initially. Try to iterate them over the time, so new people come in and they also have the similar understanding, which reduce to build out the knowledge silos which we talk about. And at least knowledge silos about design systems should not be there. Everybody in the team should aware that okay, these are the stuff which we have to take care of before even getting starting on the project. And just secure and tighten that feedback loop, like when you are shipping out features on the design system, and people are giving you feedback, you have some way to capture those feedback, and you have some way to respond to those feedback, either from a fix or from a PR, and depending on how that is. And if those feedbacks are within the team, you can also think of a better way of involving them to fix themselves, like a kind of contribution mechanism. So that's going to help a lot over there. So you thought of a design system, you build one, and you're adapting in that particular scenario just now. There are a couple of things which we learned while doing that activity at Naukri. So I think I should tell them those. So you should be in that mindset that you are open to contributions, like collect ownership from various people, have a process for PRs and bugs. You should also create a public board on Jira within your team, so that everybody can access your backlogs on the design system. Okay, these are the items which is pending, and people can see it. They can come and fix it if they want to, and they can raise a PR. And if you see it's good, you can merge it. You also have to think about reducing the maintenance cost. Uh, just if some specific thing is very complex and you have an opportunity to rework on it, try to simplify it as much as possible so that you don't have to, I mean, this end up having a little bit of stuff. Okay, like so every specific project, there is one piece which people don't want to touch, and generally we don't want that happen, but it end up happening anyway. Like suppose if there is one specific piece in your code or in your product people don't want to touch because they have a fear around that, because they are too complex to understand and they can break stuff in various places which they are not aware of. So if you simplify those specific aspect of it, it's going to have built that confidence of building and delivering those specific aspect of that particular product. And don't over engineer or over design stuff. I would suggest keep it as simple as possible so it would very easy, become easy to understand towards everybody. Don't get involved with a lot of tooling, a lot of stuff. Also invest in automation and tooling. So most of the time when we do stuff like creating files or doing stuff on the files and all those specific aspects to it, we tend to have some sort of involvement and some sort of personalization to it. So if you automate those stuff, those personalization for individual developers or individual designers would not be there. So for the naming conventions, for the file naming, directory structures, and all those specific aspects to you, you can invest a little bit in tooling and automation. Think about collaboration, like you should be make it very flexible and opinient so team can make their own decisions if they want to. It should never be blocker for a team. So when we talk about a design system and somebody wants to have a little bit of piece of code, which a little piece of a screen or little piece of component, which may not be aligned towards the design system, be open for those specific nitty-gritty stuff, because what's going to happen is that's a lot of other way of discussion going to happen if you block a team for one specific aspect of your specific solution. So it would be rather in a way that, okay, I mean, there could be a flexibility around that. Also allow a little bit of snowflakes that like somebody wants a different style of something, they can take that component, modify it into their specific project and just use it if they want. Documentation, this is very important. So make sure everything you do, everything you write, everything you start from the beginning is documented. Invest a little bit time in writing stuff, and that would help you and that would help team going along the way. Uh, you should also provide a lot of example in the context, like so this is the one way of doing it, this is another way of doing it, and this is another way of doing it. So counter examples and examples are very important when you start the documentation and do the documentation. So make sure you have that and keep it updated with the versions. So if somebody is using one version of anything, you should release a change log when you release a new version of it, and you should document all those changes before and all those changes after. I mean, there are a lot of open source tools around that which helps you to maintain your document in a version format. Docosaurus is one example, and there are another, and there are others so many. So you can use some sort of it or build a markdown system-based documentation stuff at your end, which keeps the version intact. You should also think about release process, how the release is going to happen. You should ensure backward compatibility on some cases, build a specific version number stuff. Like most of the time I saw that people are debating about that, how the version number is supposed to be. So just do that particular discussion within your team and just put a particular system in place that, okay, this number means this, so everybody have that clarity with them. So ensure and what increases break the backward compatibility, what increases does not ensure the backwards compatibility at all. So just keep those specific points up front and put a documentation around that, put a process around that. You should automate and your release process using CI/CD. I mean, this is very common. Lots of people are doing that as of now. So I think that would be very good one to do. send out release details to every channel. So if when you are releasing new features and releasing new stuff, you announce those changes on the channels within your company. Like if you have Slack, it should go on announcement in Slack or general in Slack, depending on how you structured it. If you have a centralized mailing system where you can mail everybody to once, those can be used. And if it's a public product, or people, a lot of other people are using it which is not part of your management team, there could be a public release email sent out to those users. There could be a social media post. I mean, depending on who is involved and how bigger is the audience, you should think about sending out those information in those channels. You also need to think about of that feedback loop. I mean, that how you can take information from the users, from the team later down the line. You should think about conducting surveys with the team using the design system. So you build it, and then there are a lot of teams using it. They're supposed to be a way so that they can communicate their pain points and their specific information. You should also need to have a system which helps them to say the information they want, and you need to prioritize them so that they can be coming into your backlog and later on people can fixing it. And you also focus a little bit on the issues which we have in the backlog already. Enforcement. So there's teams should adhere to the patterns which you've created, but it should be in a specific way that's not become a bottleneck. But yeah, you should also have a process to moderate and advocate about those specific stuff within the team in a longer run, so that people can adapt those. Uh, just don't build everything on your own. I mean, we try to do that, but I would suggest that pick out some base library which gives you a lot of stuff. Pick out a design system which is more aligned towards your goal, and just build on top of it. That would take a lot of time if you start building everything from scratch. So make use of open source as much as possible. And this is the part where you guys talk. Okay, so let me turn on my camera. Do we have any other slide? No, that's it. Yeah. Anybody have any questions, any concerns, anything which we can talk here?
So Ashok, I have a question. Dinesh here.
Yep. Yeah, understand.
So, I just have a question of validating by the design team, right? So, for example, the design team is going to, do their magic with Adobe XD or whatever, and they create the design UI and give it to us, and we develop it, right? So, after developing, right, there should be a phase where the UI team actually validates the components we created, matches the specification that they designed it.
Yeah.
So currently, what methods do you use to make this specific process efficient?
So what I adopted is storyboard. What helped me, like to put those specific individual component in a documentation format, so designer can also see and interact with it. So our whole tech stack was in React, and we sort of started building that, that component library. I mean, after having all those things in place, we start building a component library. So rather than building a component library for us or for the FE team only, we also build a component library for design people, so they can have the sort of components available in their tools, like if they're using XT, Figma, or Sketch. On that particular time when I used to have it, the Sketch was there. So all of these tools have a specification where you can import a component library and just create the whole design place over there. And using that component library, they can design this individual screens. And we have a similar component library with us as in front end engineers, and we can pick stuff from that component library. And we have a sandbox available, which we build using Storyboard, which helps them to visualize our specific component. And if they have any change, they can just go and create a PR around that, and we'll fix that whenever we get time with it.
Cool. So Storybook is becoming really popular for being the go-to tool for it right now for the component library maintenance. Is there any other tool you experimented with apart from Storybook?
Not exactly. So we try to do that on a manual documentation process initially, and that end up having a lot of time just to build the documentation and component examples around that. So we kind of adapted a Storybook down the line just to create those specific documentation on top of it. So we were already building examples for every specific component within the component itself. So when you look at the code, you can look at the component itself, and there is an example folder within that component to tell you that what are the options and how the integration of that component is supposed to happen, what are the props and everything is available. So we use that example folder inside our Storybook to just to give the designers and everybody else a playground to play with. So that I mean, we have not researched that much for any other tools, but yeah, I mean, I think there would be a lot of alternatives to Storybook as well.
Thank you. Thank you, Ashok.
Yeah. Anybody else have any questions? No?
Hello, hi Ashok.
Hey, hi.
Hi, Karthik here. So, I have a question somewhat before to this topic. So, for example, just take scenario of startups, where they have not much of experience and they don't have those UI developers and all those things too. And as you said before, they don't have that much time to develop a design system. In case if they are picking a material design or a Spotify or something, some design which is previously there to
Exactly.
build it. So how we will so for example, I have been in that scenario. So there will be design team and there will be development team, front end developers, and there are a lot of layers there. So
Exactly.
it is always difficult to synchronize between them, because uh, that part, that building part will be done by the front end developers, whereas the designing team will be totally in sync with business and the clients, and they will build it. So uh, how to make sync between these? So that is one difficulty which I faced before.
So every specific tool, like you talk about startup where we don't have that much time, to build a design system from scratch. But if you talk about material library, for example, a material design system, they not only have the Angular or maybe JavaScript or components for FE, they also have component for your designers.
Okay.
So they can use those components to keep in line with your development process. So if they are tweaking one specific component which is coming from the material library design system itself, then they can also inform you with that design that this component was taken from that material part, that material component, and modified in this way. And then and you are aware of that, okay, I have to take that one particular material component in my FE project and modify it along the way so that it can in line with the design itself. So this sort of communication system you have to develop, and the tool and the library which you're going to use for your design mechanism, it should have the capability for both side of the people. Like the designer should also have a library the similar way you have a library to use. Otherwise it would not make that much sense. Like they may design something completely different, and then you end up using multiple libraries to just cater their requirements. Like you start with
Yes.
you start with material, then you see, okay, the calendar looks pretty similar to ANT. Let's take the calendar from A and T. Then you start looking, okay, their drop down looks pretty similar to maybe some other specific library, and then you start importing and researching around that. So if you not align that particular part in a way that they both are using the same source of libraries and same source of stuff which reduce the time it required to build and develop, either design that particular part or develop that part on a FE side, then you end up in this particular situation, no matter how small and big your team is, because you have to tell them, okay, you're gonna pick stuff from here and we're gonna pick stuff from here.
Thank you, Ashok. Because the same problem we also end up with, because sometimes we'll pick up different components from different libraries.
Exactly.
At last, it will end up with a worst design.
Yeah, so
it
that's
is
the
like that,
scenario
then
there.
it will be
Rather
better.
than
Yeah.
picking up stuff from multiple libraries, you should talk about modifying the current one which you have.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, that could
That's
end up you spending a couple of more days onto that particular piece of stuff, but it would end up having the consistency which you want longer down the line.
yeah, sure. Thanks. Thank you.
Any more questions? Okay. Okay. Thanks everyone for being here. It was pleasure uh, talking to you guys, and I hope those specific stuff helps you in some way down the line. That is the whole agenda. And reach out to me on. I'm available on Twitter and LinkedIn or anywhere else if you want. If you have any questions later down the line, and if you want any clarity on the specific aspect of design system and all, you can just ping me and I'll reply to you whenever I'm available. So thanks a lot, everybody over there. And thanks, Coimbatore team, to facilitate this. This is, I think, the second interaction which I'm having with them, second talk so far. Just keep up the good work, guys.
Thank you so much, Ashok. It was really great to have you. And this was really good talk, right? It was like you pouring out your years of experience into one PPT. It was really nice to, see the depth of content in your talk. So thank you so much.
Have a good day, everybody.
Have a great weekend, Ashok.
Yeah, you guys.
So thank you, everyone. So our third speaker, Mohan, will not be able to join us since he has a personal emergency that he has to deal with. We will be wrapping up after the second session. So I have a small form that I'm just going to share on the chat. So it's for the JetBrains raffle that we run on a monthly basis for every session that we hold, right? So if you don't know about JetBrains, JetBrains is a company that develops and creates developer IDEs. So, and they're also creating all sorts of other tools and services for developers now. So you can actually join in the raffle, and we give away 1 year of free license, right? So you can pick any one product from JetBrains, and you can use the coupon that we give away in the raffle to claim one free year. So I'm just joining. So just a heads up, if you're a student, the JetBrains all bundle pack is available for free for a student license, right? So if you're a student, I urge not to fill in the form. We encourage only professionals to use this. So unless otherwise you're a student who's in an internship, then you may want to apply for this as well, because your student license restricts you from using it for professional activities, right? But when you get an individual license like this, you can also use it for your work as well. So please do fill out if you're interested in the JetBrains product. You can also try out the product on a 30-day evaluation period, and if you really like it, maybe in the next meetup you can apply for the raffle, right? And maybe luckily you would definitely get one, because we are working with JetBrains to increase the number of license we can give away to the amount of people participating. So thank you so much. And next we will be having Uday. So Uday is most of us will already be knowing Uday. So Uday has his own meetup as well, so called Angular Hive, and he hosts a lot of content, and he has been closely working with Coimbatore Frontend group to give out some awesome content and sessions as well. So Uday will be talking to us about Angular and Tailwind CSS. So Tailwind CSS is a really great utility-based framework. If you haven't heard about it, it's high time you actually go check it out, what Tailwind CSS is and why it is starting to trend, I would say. And Angular 12 onwards, Angular is starting to fluently support Tailwind, and this is the right moment if you're using Angular to try Tailwind, and if possible, make it the CSS framework for your next project. So Uday, I'll pass over the stage to you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dinesh. I hope my audio and video is clear.
Yes, Udhay.
Yes, Uday.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thanks once again for the introduction, Dinesh. And hey, everyone. I'm Uday. So I'm a full stack Java developer, I can say, because I'm working on both backend and frontend these days. I started with Java like 10 years back, but now I'm working on both frontend and backend as well. And I also host meetup events at Angular Hive. Let me share my screen quickly so that I can. Yeah. So this is my meetup group, Angular Hive, and this is not based on any specific location. Since I'm from like Chennai area, I kept it as Chennai, but anyone from any part of the world can join this meetup group. And we host all the events online. So due to pandemic, we started this as an online event, and we are going to continue to do the same. And yeah, so feel free to join this meetup group as well. And we are closely working with Coimbatore Frontend group as well, and we collaborated in a couple of sessions as well before. Yeah, and you can also find me on Twitter at Ask Uday, and you can reach out to me questions if you have related to Angular, Tailwind CSS, or even if you just want to say hi, you can just follow me there and DM me. Yeah, that's all about me. And apart from hosting events, I also write blog posts. So you can find me at askuday.com. And currently this blog is hosted on Hashnode. You can take a look at my blog there, and you can support me. So that's all about me. So let's jump onto the topic. So I'm going to discuss about Angular and Tailwind CSS today, like how we can use Tailwind CSS in Angular. So it was a bit difficult task before, like I think like 6 months back, if you wanted to use Tailwind CSS in Angular, because that involves a lot of configurations go in, and some tweaks in build process, and some changes in like Tailwind CSS configurations. So that was kind of a hectic task before if you wanted to use Tailwind CSS in Angular. But after the release of Angular 11.2, so it becomes easy. So Angular itself supports Tailwind CSS by default. So it provides a native support, which is called as out-of-the-box support. So it comes with all the pre-configurations that are needed for Tailwind CSS. So all we need is we need to just install Tailwind CSS as a dependency in our project, and you can start using Tailwind CSS in Angular projects. Okay. And so those who are not from Angular background, okay, so don't think that this session is not, I mean, this particular session is not for you. You can still take a look at how we are doing the stuffs with Tailwind CSS. Okay, so the configuration that I'm going to do in Angular may not be applicable for other frameworks like Vue and React, but still you can take a look at how I'm creating how I'm going to use Tailwind CSS in my project to create something, right? So I'm going to show you how we can create a simple card component, and I will also demo you a form that I created using Tailwind CSS. Okay, so just stick with the session, and so you'll learn something new today. Okay. Yeah, as I mentioned before, Angular version 11.2 supports Tailwind CSS, and you can look at this tweet as well, which was posted by Angular on Twitter. But so you may ask, like, how I can use Tailwind CSS before 11.2. Okay, I didn't write any post on that, but I will try to create a post and share it on Ashok, maybe in next couple of weeks. And for today's session, I didn't prepare any presentation because I just wanted to take it in a more like, what to say, like going through my blog post as well as conveying what coming out of my mind. So that's what I wanted to do today. So I don't want to do it in a traditional way, like going over slide by slide and show you like what is what, right? So I just want to do it in a different way today so that it will be easy for you to go through my blog post as well, just in case you want to try out Tailwind CSS in Angular project. Okay. Yeah, as I mentioned before, you can take a look at this tweet, and you can also take a look at the GitHub commit just to see what changes were done by Angular team. And coming to Tailwind CSS. So Tailwind CSS is a buzzword in web development recent days, right? So you might have heard about Tailwind CSS at least once in the past 1 year. So that's because Tailwind CSS becomes so popular within like quite months of its launch. That's because it's taking care of most of the burden that a front-end developer will be carrying out. Say, for example, if I want to design a page that needs to be responsive, right? So I need to write a lot of media queries to satisfy different types of devices, like large device, say, for example, laptop and above. That should be, that should have a specific paragraph width. And for small devices like mobile, it should have a specific paragraph width. I need to write a lot of CSS for that, right? We can get a template as well on internet, but again, you need to sit and write all the media queries, and you need to think about how this particular page is going to be rendered across multiple devices. But Tailwind CSS is going to solve that. So you'll be using Tailwind CSS pre-built responsive themes, as well as we can use its inbuilt breakpoints like MD, LG, SM, XL. So you can use those breakpoints so that those breakpoints will take care of adding those media queries out of the box. Okay, so that is one example I wanted to point out here, like why you need to go with Tailwind CSS. And we have a couple of other things as well in Tailwind CSS. If, for example, if you want to create a paragraph with a gray color background, so you don't have to go and write a background color, a colon gray, and you don't have to put that within paragraph curly braces within your style.css. So all you can do is you can use the pre-built CSS class, Tailwind CSS class called bg-gray -100 or 200, because gray color comes in different shades. Okay. So that is another example of using utility classes. So Tailwind comes with a bunch of utility classes. So that solves like anything and everything in web development. Like if you want to create a border, if you want to create a background color, or if you want to create a text, if you want to have a text align for your paragraphs, and if you want to create a margin, if you want to create a padding, you can do everything and anything with a Tailwind CSS. Okay. And Tailwind CSS basically focus on mobile. So when you are creating a page, first thing you need to think about mobile, like how this is going to be rendered on mobile. Because these days, any website that you create, that needs to be tested on mobile first. And then you move on to like different sizes of devices, like large device, XL devices, right? So first you need to test it on mobile. So that's why Tailwind CSS is also focusing on. So when you are creating a page and when you are using Tailwind CSS, so the CSS classes that you will be using will be focused on mobile. Okay, so later you will be deciding on like different breakpoints for MD, how this needs to be rendered. For large devices, how this needs to be rendered, right? So I'll show that in next couple of minutes. And Tailwind also comes with like ready-made components, like how Angular material and Bootstrap components are there, right? So similar to that, Tailwind CSS as well has components, but the support for Angular is not that good. That's what I would say. But like Angular developers are contributing that, and you'll be seeing a lot of Tailwind CSS components supported for Angular in next couple of months. Okay, but still we have like a couple of components available on the internet. You can take a look. But Tailwind CSS goes hand in hand with React.js. So for React, you have like a lot of Tailwind CSS components available. And even for Vue, you can find, but for Angular, like recently the popularity is gaining for Angular framework. I mean, in a Tailwind CSS platform. So you'll be finding like more components in near future. Okay, how to use Tailwind CSS in Angular project? Okay, so let's begin with creating a new Angular project. I did that already. I created a new Angular project using n command called ng-new, and project name is ng-tailwind-demo. Okay, so this will create a new project for me, and that created a skeleton for my project. And I changed the directory to my project already, and I opened that project in my Visual Studio Code editor, right? So now what I need to do is I need to install Tailwind CSS. So Tailwind CSS doesn't come by default with Angular project, right? Angular supports Tailwind CSS, like for configuration and other stuff. But you need to install Tailwind CSS manually. How you do it with Angular material or Bootstrap. So let me go ahead and install Tailwind CSS. So I'm already under my project ng Tailwind demo. So I'm going to use npm install to install Tailwind CSS, and I just want to install it as a dev dependency because I don't want it to be in my final build, because this is not going this npm dependency is not going to be used in my production environment, right? So why? Because the CSS classes that you will be using will be copied to styles.css. Okay, so let me go ahead and install Tailwind CSS. So this will install Tailwind CSS as a dev dependency. So let me go to package.json and take a look at dev dependency here. And you should be seeing Tailwind CSS in next couple of seconds as soon as the installation is complete. So once this installation is complete, you can go ahead and create the configuration for Tailwind CSS. So what is that configuration? Let me talk about that as well. So we need some configuration for Tailwind CSS to let know that how the purge process should happen, how the different variants of gray color should be configured, or how new colors can be added for my sake of my project, right? So you can put all those configurations within Tailwind config.js. So you need to create this Tailwind config.js under your project, like under the root of your project, so that Tailwind CSS can take a look at this configuration file, and that will create that will purge the project at the time of building your project. And also, say for example, if you want to use a color called BG-orange, Tailwind doesn't have a color called orange, right? But just in case you want to use an orange color, you can create your variant of orange colors within tailwind.config.js. Okay, and you can refer those in your project. So let me go ahead and see. Yeah, so the installation is complete. And you will see Tailwind CSS added as a div dependency. Okay, all right. And let me go ahead and create Tailwind config.js. And make sure the name is same as tailwind.config.js. So that's the naming convention we have. So I'm going to use touch command to create tailwind config.js. So this will create a JavaScript file for me. And that JavaScript file will not have anything inside it. Okay. We need to install, we need to copy Tailwind. We need to copy the content of Tailwind config.js from documentation. Say, for example, if you jump on to documentation and under installation, right, you will find this tailwind.config.js. So you can just copy this, and you can just copy this and put it under tailwind.config.js. So this is one way of doing, right? So if you are a bit lazy and you don't want to create this tailwind.config.js using touch command, so all you can do is, I'm just going to delete this just to demonstrate how we can use the Tailwind support. Okay. So in that case, what you can do, you can use npx command, which is basically npm installer command, which will install, which will create a tailwind.config.js for me. Okay. So this npx space tailwind CSS init will create a tailwind.config.js for me. And also it will add the default configuration that goes within that. So this configuration has nothing to do with, the only thing that I have is a dark mode set to false. So I'm not going to use dark mode here for now. So it is set to false, and other configurations are kind of a dummy configurations, nothing added into that. Okay. So you can create this configuration in two ways. One, you can create tailwind.config.js manually, and you can copy this configuration from Tailwind documentation, put it there. And the second way is you can use npx command to create this tailwind.config.js. Okay. So this is how our configuration looks now. So what else? So we created our simple Angular project, and also we created tailwind.config.js. All set. So as part of configuration, we are done. But we need to let know our Angular project that, okay, please refer to Tailwind CSS classes, right? Because we haven't included tailwind.css anywhere, like inside index.html, right? We didn't link style sheet here, like Tailwind CSS style sheet. So how we can let know our Angular project that please use these Tailwind CSS? So just adding the dependency is not enough. We added the Tailwind CSS dependencies here, but adding that is not enough. We need to let know Angular that please look into this Tailwind CSS directives. Okay, so you can add this Tailwind CSS directives in two ways. If you are using CSS, you can add these. If you are using SCSS, you can add these. Okay, you just need to import. So since I'm using CSS, I'm going to add Tailwind base components and utilities. So you may ask what these are, right? So these are directives. This base gets expanded into basic CSS classes. Say, for example, if I want to add a background color, okay, if I want to add a background color yellow for my paragraph or div, right? So this bg-yellow-50, this class will be available within base. Okay, and similarly, components like Tailwind comes with default components, right? So all those components will be available under this directives, and utilities will have all the information about like breakpoints and other stuffs. So we need to add this at the time of building our project or at the time of, since the Angular is pre-configured with the Tailwind. So these gets expanded and that will be added as part of styles.css. Okay. When I spin this project and when I view this app on my browser, you will see a different thing on styles.css. So all these three directives get expanded and that will be having different classes like H1, H2, H3, H4, H5, H6, and P for paragraph tag, div tag. Like what are the HTML elements you have? All those HTML elements along with different classes gets added into styles.css. Okay. So that's why we are adding this as part of styles.css. And let's move on to the next configuration we have in place. So yeah, that's it. All right. Now let me go to my HTML app.component.html, which is the entry point for my Angular project, right? I'm going to add a simple div tag and I'm going to say hello world. As always, let's start with hello world. And I just want to add some classes to this. And that's going to be, I just want to have BG color to be yellow, BG color yellow 500. And I just want to have margin to be 4 and padding to be 4. Okay. So I have a simple div tag and that's going to have the background color as yellow and margin 4 and padding 4. So when I say P4, that means in all the 4 directions, like top, left, and right bottom, it's going to add 4 EM. Okay. So let's search for P-4. If you don't have an idea about what P-4, just take a look at the documentation in TailwindCSS documentation. So and do a quick search like P-4. So P-4 is 1 rem. Sorry, not M, it's rem. Okay. So the padding size of 1 rem. Okay. And let me run this app. So ng serve -o, which means I'm going to serve this application and open the application on my default browser. Okay. So just a moment, my server is getting restarted. So it was running before, but I just stopped it just for our sake of demo. Okay, I'm just taking a quick pass here until my server is started. So if you have any question, just post it on Zoom comments or chat, whatever we call. So I will take a look and try to answer your questions. Or you can even come over audio and you can post your questions. Anything is fine. So it doesn't have to be specific to Angular as well. Like if you want to ask about something else around Tailwind CSS.
Hello.
That's also
Hi, Uday. It's Akhilesh. I just have a doubt in the rem. What if I want to use percentage of pixels? I don't want to use rem, or I just need to change the percentage. How do we change the?
Yeah, Tailwind CSS supports that. I haven't tried that, but Tailwind in tailwind.config.
Okay.
I mean, in config. JS, you can do it. So let me open that. Okay, you can mention it something like this.
Yeah.
So when you do like 0, that means 0, and that gets added here basically, right? So this is for sake of scale, but if you want to do it for like pixel for width and height, you have to do it something similar. You can specify that within your tailwind.config.js, and that will look into that. Instead of rem, it will start using pixel. Okay, but I haven't tried that, but that's a good question. So let me also take a look at that. So why we go with REM is basically it's, so you know, right? So REM has a lot of advantages. So let me go through that. So it goes by the scale of your device. So that's why Tailwind CSS also started using REM instead of like pixel or something else, like M or something else. Okay. So
Thank you.
yeah, that is related to the font size of the root element. Yeah. So what you start with your root element, that is HTML, that goes with that. Okay. Okay. All right. Our yeah. Any more questions?
Hi, Uday.
Yeah. Please go ahead.
So Uday, like Tailwind, we have Bootstrap semantics. So I'm not an Angular guy. I'm a React guy. So we have a lot of libraries, right? So what is the advantage or something which can push us to go for Tailwind?
Sure. So in Bootstrap 4, I mean, I'm not trying to, underestimate another framework here.
Okay.
But what's the disadvantage with Bootstrap we have is the CSS classes that comes with Bootstrap are not like, that doesn't go with like traditional way of creating CSS. Say for example, if you want to create a background color with yellow, you have to create another CSS class when you are using Bootstrap.
Okay.
Right. But in the case of Tailwind itself provides it as a class. So you don't have to move out of your HTML basically. So you can code everything within HTML. That is one thing. And the second thing is when it comes to grid and flexbox, I see like Tailwind CSS provides more support in the case of using grid and flexbox. So it is like traditionally how you will create a flexbox. So that's how it is. But in the case of Bootstrap, it comes with classes like dot flex, something like that, right?
Yeah,
but
some columns and
yeah,
all
columns. So
will be there.
those are like predefined, that goes within Bootstrap. So you need to understand how that works first. But in the case of Tailwind, you don't have to learn anything new. So what if you already know Flexbox, you can very well start using Flexbox in your project using Tailwind. Let me show you.
Yeah, please.
So the CSS classes that you will find in Tailwind CSS for Flex will be something like this: Flex-auto, Flex-1, Flex-none, right?
Okay.
So these are something similar to how you will do it with traditional CSS.
Yeah. So the thing is, when it comes to Flex, the class names are slightly related to Flex, but the working is anyways pretty much same, right?
Pretty much same.
Yeah.
The component wise also there are little bit change you can find.
Okay, because
So
when for example, when we take an framework like Semantic UI,
Mhm.
for React they are just providing a very good library. So you can just use React component tags, and you'll just write your code inside it. They give a very good support. So when it comes to that, so
Yeah.
likewise, so is there anything here?
Tailwind goes, I already mentioned, right? Tailwind goes hand in hand with React.
Yeah.
So they don't, they are not much supported by Angular, but they have good support for React and then Vue. So you can take a look at the Tailwind components, what they developed already. So this is actually paid components. You don't have to go with that, but just for sake of conversation, I'm explaining this.
Yeah.
So there is a site called TailwindComponents.com. This is owned by Tailwind CSS team itself, right?
Okay.
So that comes with a lot of components here. Okay. So you will find a lot of components here, and all these components predominantly support this thing, React and Vue for now. So we don't have support for even Angular yet, but you will find support for React and Vue here.
So we can also use SAS and all those stuff to override it.
Very
right?
well. Yeah, you can use. Yeah. So you can just use Tailwind CSS as part of your CSS framework as well. It's up to you. So it's basically going to avoid this. So in just one word, we can say, let me open a notepad. Say, for example, if you want to create a background color for your paragraph, so what do you do? Background hyphen color after using
Background
Tailwind.
hyphen color, direct background will also work.
Yeah. So we use like EEE if you want to use a gray color, right? If you want to add a border, 1 pixel solid red. So we do something like this. But in Tailwind CSS, all we are going to do is, so you are going to create a paragraph, and after configuring Tailwind CSS, so you are going to use BG color. So gray is already supported, and it comes with like eight shades, I believe. Okay. So you can give like 400, and for border B hyphen, border hyphen 1, border hyphen 1, I believe. Yeah, border hyphen 0, 2, 4, something like that. So that's going to be border hyphen 2, which means 2 rem. And again, border color you can give. So which is like border hyphen yellow or something. Okay. So in this case, it's going to be border hyphen, I want a red color. Yeah, red is supported. So it's going to be something like this. So you don't have to move out of your HTML, and you don't have to create the CSS. So we have this utility CSS, comes handy with Tailwind CSS.
Okay. So according to my understanding, so all the CSS are very handy. Yes. And the things we can configure it directly in the configuration.
Exactly.
So that our conflicts of overriding CSS will be there in a form of JSON. It would be a little bit easy for us, right?
Exactly. Okay. Exactly.
Thanks for that.
Okay, for example, if you want to use an orange color, right? So orange is not supported in Tailwind.
Okay.
So you need to put this orange color and its exa value in tailwind.config.js.
Okay.
Yeah. So it is not like you are restricted to use only Tailwind CSS, Tailwind provided colors or something. You can even customize that.
Yes.
Yeah, all that customization goes within tailwind.config.js.
Oh.
So this is just, yeah, no problem. This is just one example of why Tailwind CSS is different from Bootstrap. In Bootstrap, it is not supported, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So coming back. Yeah.
Thanks,
yeah, no problem. So our server has been started, and you can see a paragraph tag. What did we create? Okay, div tag with background color yellow and margin 4, padding 4, and border is going to be red color with shade of 600. I just want like a dark border. Okay, you can see a thin border there. So if you want to make it thick, you need to add border hyphen 2 rem. Okay, so we got a thick border now. So I can show it like side by side so that. Okay, so if you want to change it with different background color, like indigo, right? So that's supported. So background color indigo hyphen 500, and border you can add some pink color, like contrasting colors. So you can use like any utility classes like this. Okay. And I want to change this border. I want to add this border only for, or I want to have this background color to be a different color for medium and above devices. Okay. So in that case, what I can do, I can give it like MD colon. MD colon is nothing but I'm using a breakpoint here, which is like above, like medium and above devices, please change the color to yellow, right? So this is, I mean, this window is looking like a tab, basically. The size of this window is tab now, right? So let me reduce the size of this, width of this window. You can see the background color got changed to indigo. That's because below MD device is nothing but small devices, which are mobile devices. So for mobile devices, the background color is going to be indigo. Above mobile devices, which is nothing but like tab, laptop, and like TV and all those devices, the background color is going to be yellow. Okay, you can even specify like for large devices, please change the background color to be something else, like green color, which is LG, again a breakpoint. So now it is in the size of small device. Now it is in the size of medium device. Now it is in the size of large device. Okay. So how quickly we added these breakpoints. So that is one advantage of using a Tailwind CSS, right? So we didn't include any media queries in our CSS file, but adding these breakpoints just took care of it. Okay, so this is just a quick introduction to Tailwind CSS. So let's go ahead and create a simple, a simple card component. So that I already have open here. So I'm going to create this simple card component using Tailwind CSS. So let me go ahead and here it is. All right, and this is my ID. So first thing is we need to create div tag. Where is that? Yeah, here it is. Okay, so just this piece of code is going to create this card component for me. First, let us create the background for my card component. So a simple div. Okay, and when you add this extension, let me show the extension for Tailwind CSS. Tailwind CSS IntelliSense. Okay, so if you add this IntelliSense extension, so like when you do like BG control space, that will automatically pop up all the supported colors here. But the one configuration that needed to trigger this IntelliSense in your project is tailwind.config.js. Make sure you have this config.js in your project so that this IntelliSense will start work. Okay, even if you are creating a dummy project, make sure you add just this dummy tailwind.config.js. Okay, let me create a simple background for my div, which is BG blue 300. Okay, let me just add hello world to that so that we can see hello world there, and also background blue color. Okay, and let me add a pixel of size 40 so that the 40 rem pixel will be added on top, right, bottom, as well as left. So even if you want like even more than 40, you can add like 60, 64, 72, 80, 96. Okay. Let me use 24 for now. So otherwise our card component will be very small. So inside the card component, inside the background of this, I want to create a card component. Okay. And this is going to have my name and a quick introduction about me, or just like where I am working. Okay. So this is what our card component is going to be, but we need to beautify that, and we are going to use TailwindCSS for that. Okay. So this Uday and full stack engineer at ABC Corp, this goes within a inner div, and let's add some color for the inner div. So BG-white. Okay. So this is how our card component looks like, and let's add some padding to that. So P-4. Let's start with P-4. Let's see how that looks. Okay, but I want a little bit expanded card. So let me go with P-8. Yeah, this looks good. Even we can use P-12. That will create a big card for us. Okay, and now all I want is this edges to be a little bit rounded. So what we can do is rounded -small. Let's start with a small rounded edges, but that's not that visible, right? So they are not that visible. So let me change that to large. Rounded -large is going to create a more rounded edges. Yes, that created the rounded edges. So sorry, rounded LG, not L. Rounded -LG will create a rounded edges for us. And on top of that, I just want to create a shadow for my card component, so that you will get an impression like this card is projected out from the background. So this added shadow MD, but that is not enough. So let me go with shadow-XL. Okay. So now you see the card component is having the shadow as with XL size, which has some properties. You can take a look at a Tailwind documentation. Let's go ahead and see what shadow-XL. Okay. So shadow-XL is nothing but, so this gets added as part of shadow-XL. Okay, cool. So we created a simple card component and we added the white background, but we want this text to be a little bit bold in size, and also we want to change the size of this designation as well. Okay, let's go back to our Visual Studio Code. Let's add class text-2XL. Okay, and also I want to add bold font to that, and I just want a margin bottom, so which is MB. I want a little bit distance between my H2 tag and paragraph tag, so MB-2. So that will kick the paragraph tag a little bit below from the H2 tag, so you can see a small gap created here. That's cool. And now let's increase the size of this designation as well. Okay, let's go with text large, but I don't want it to be a bold text, but I just want this to be gray in color, because I don't like the black color here. So I'm changing that to a gray color. And also I want to change the color of this to a little bit dark gray. So instead of pure black color. Okay. So this is how my card component looks like. Maybe I can go with 600 as well. And here, let me change it to 800. Okay. So this is how my card component looks like. So in small device, it's occupying this much. And in large device, it's taking the entire width of my device, right? Browser. That's not good. The card should not be this big. So what we can do is we can change the configuration for width in this div tag. So what I'm going to say is width should be off when it comes to medium devices. Okay. Yeah, when it comes to medium devices, width should be off of the window. So if I expand this to like a large device, it is actually taking the off of my window again. So what you can do in that case, width should be 1/3. Okay. So if it is a large device like my monitor, which is like a 27-inch monitor. So this is kind of a XL device, or sorry, large device, more than large. So in that case, it's going to take like 1/3 of my width. Okay. But it's not center aligned, right? So let's use margin left and margin right auto property, which is MX auto. So this will put this div tag at the center of the window. So you can see the card component got added at the center of the window. Okay. So when I change the size of this window, you can see it is getting rendered according to the configuration that we have in div tag classes, like mdw-off lg:w-1/3. Okay. So you can create your components like this. Okay. So any questions before I move on to the next part, which is the last part in this session, like how we can purge Tailwind CSS. Okay. And what is the advantage of doing that? So before discussing that, you have any questions, or you want to add anything to this discussion, whatever we did so far? Okay, all right. Looks like we don't have any questions. Let's move on to the next part, which is like purging. So what is purging basically? So let me open styles.css from this app. So go to inspect, and inspect is here. Okay, and in sources, yeah, under sources, you will find styles.css. So under styles.css, if you take a look, it has everything and anything under tailwind.css, right? So it has everything, but we are not using all these CSS classes, right? So when you build this project, this entire CSS gets bundled with your project, and the final bundle size is going to be huge. It's going to be more than 4 MB for sure, right? So you need to keep your bundle size below 1 MB for faster load on your browsers. But if you just build this project just like this, Angular will not allow, first of all, because Angular has a threshold of 1 MB size final build. So the build will fail, obviously. But just in case you want to know like how you can purge this in case if you are using React or Vue, you need to add some configurations within your tailwind config.js. So you need to add this piece of code. Okay. So let me explain you what that is going to do. So jump on to tailwind.config.js and you will see a purge array here. Just replace that with purge JavaScript object. And here we just mentioned that we want to enable purging, and this purging should look for files under this particular directory and look for HTML and TS. And if it finds any Tailwind CSS classes, only those classes gets added into styles.css. So instead of putting all the Tailwind CSS classes, it's just going to add only the classes that you are using in your project. Okay. So now let's go ahead and look at tailwind.con. Sorry, this thing. Styles.css. So it got reduced. It removed a lot. Okay. So we should have checked the styles.css size, but that's fine. So it removed everything and you just have what we need. Say for example, shadow Excel. We are using shadow Excel, right? In one of the places, you can find that class here. And we are using text gray 600, text gray 800, font bold. Only those gets added to styles.css. Okay. So this is one way of doing. The other way is Tailwind supports JIT mode. So let me show you that in the documentation. So recently Tailwind released the JIT mode. So which is like super fast mode, like you can build your Tailwind CSS projects. So when you configure this mode as JIT, and after supplying the path that needs to be purged, it will automatically look for changes in your file. As soon as you type something and you do a Control+S, or you just start typing some classes, it's going to look for changes in watch for the changes in your HTML files, and it will keep adding only those Tailwind CSS classes to styles.css. Okay, so this is one way of doing, like we can add this purge enable true. The other way is we can add mode to be JIT. So here we are totally using Tailwind provided JIT functionality, so which is super fast. It even runs faster than the previous configuration what I showed. Okay, so for this you just need to stop your server and restart your server so that it will recognize JIT mode, and it starts looking, or it starts watching for app.component.html for any new CSS classes that we are going to add. Okay, so all right, so that's all I have to discuss. And I created a couple of components as well. Maybe you can take a look at my code pen, what I created. Let me share that here quickly. So this form was created using Tailwind. And I'm using Flexbox here to make this form center aligned, and also the components within the form to be center aligned. Okay, I also created this form. This is super amazing because it just renders according to the device size. So as you expand it, it's going to change. Okay, I mean the layout is going to be changed totally. As you make it as a small device, so you see how this card component is rendering now. But when you change it to large and extra large device, since we have more space in extra large devices as well as large devices, we are utilizing that and displaying the card component like this. Okay, responsive design basically. Okay, our app is running now, and let's give a try with JIT mode. And if you look at here, as soon as you start your project, it says that you have enabled the JIT engine, which is currently in preview. Okay, that's fine. But JIT mode is currently running, and this is your final build size of this project. So if you take a look at styles.css, it's going to be 391 KB in size. Okay, so let me go ahead and change something in my app.component.html. Let me change this to Indigo. Okay, as soon as I save it, JIT mode will look for changes, and it will add the particular bg-indigo class within my style.css, and you also see the change in my browser. Okay, so same thing as before. The only difference is it's going to make it faster. So without using JIT mode, it's going to be taking like extra, like maybe 1 second or even 2 seconds, depends upon how much Tailwind classes you are using in your project. Okay, but in this case, we are using very less number of Tailwind classes, so it's not going to show like much impact. But when it comes to like big projects, go with the JIT mode. Okay, all right, let me share this blog post which I created for using Tailwind CSS in Angular. Just take a look, and if you have any questions, you can reach out me on Twitter at @AskUday, and you can just follow me and you can DM me there. Okay, and if you have like interesting stuff to share, like if you are creating something new, feel free to post it. So just DM it, I'll take a look. Okay, and I'm sharing this link with you in chat. Okay, all right. So anything else before I wind up? Like you have any questions or you want to share anything about Tailwind CSS?
Yeah, Uday. So again, Karthik here.
Yes, Karthik.
So Uday, may I know so how JIT actually make things fast? Because so yeah, one thing is it is actually reducing our CSS code part. We are not pushing everything, but the thing is, anyways, we are going to look up for the whole project every time, right? So it's a small project. Okay, we have only 2 files, but when it comes to bigger kind of projects, anyways, we are going to work it in only development mode. After build, it's a different story. So in this part, so how so searching that particular complexity will be more, right? So how actually JIT makes it faster? So is there any idea?
Okay, so this JIT mode itself developed by Tailwind CSS team. So they introduced this because Tailwind CSS comes with a bulk of classes, and we need to, shred the classes that are not used in our project. That is our first motto, because that keeps our bundle size small, right? So every team, every team was implementing it in different way. Some were using a specific JavaScript code to do that, like to remove this, and some were using like a separate npm library to do that, and it was like that. And I was specifically using the purge mode before this JIT was available, right? So the purge mode was working fine. It's part of Tailwind as well, but this is not having any functionality that JIT has. But you may ask, like, what JIT specifically has here? So JIT is going to cache the files that are not changed. So it will just look for files that are, that are recently changed. And again, that is not going to pull everything from the Tailwind CSS. So first, it will just download the Tailwind CSS in one place, and from there, it will pick the classes that are used in your project. And it keeps adding to the target CSS file. That could be styles.css, or it could be, if it is a React project, it's going to be under public folder, somewhere like styles.css or somewhere. So you can watch this video as well to get more idea on what is just in time actually, and how it differs from the previous way of purging Tailwind CSS. Okay.
Yeah.
So Yeah, they mentioned like it just takes 3 to 8 seconds to initially compile using our CLI, and upwards of 30 to 35 seconds in Webpack if you are using Webpack.
Okay.
But if you are using JIT, it's going to be 800 milliseconds. That's what they mentioned. Yeah.
Okay. That's good. So it's like so at first time we'll all the process will be done, and for second time, so the searching and all those stuffs will be done only for the changed file, so that it will be more faster.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm also sharing this link in Zoom chat window.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Udhay.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So any more questions? Okay. All right. So Dinesh, you are there.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. It was really great to go into Tailwind CSS, right? So, as you know, just to see the popularity as it has reached, but even with most of the local devs I've interacted with, I found most people did not know about Tailwind and the concept of utility based framework, right? So it seems awkward at first, but then previously we didn't have the concept of componentizing things. So since we can make it into components, it makes sense to abstract CSS. So basically the main advantage I see of Tailwind CSS is you don't have to learn CSS. Writing CSS is very easy, right? But then when you go beyond a couple of pages or you create a lot of content, then maintaining that CSS becomes a big overhead. So when you start using frameworks like Tailwind CSS, the developers just have to know the class names that Tailwind CSS has implemented, and in turn just create components and reuse it. So it's not going to create a mess of your code. The reason is because you would most probably be using components rather than actually filling out CSS classes, a ton of CSS classes, I would say, in HTML. So this was really awesome, Uday. Really great post and really great walkthrough. I think it should have been more or less like a workshop. It's a mini workshop. So thank you so much.
Sure. Thanks, Dinesh.
Yes, Uday.
Yeah. Thank
So,
you.
so please be sure to check out today's meetup group as well, people. So it's Angular Hype, and I have another small thing I want to share. So a Pluralsight. So many of you all may have heard of Pluralsight. So Pluralsight is a website that offers quality tutorials or content on developer tools, languages, processes, and so on, right? So they are giving a free weekend. It's basically to promote their services, but it is a really a really good bargain. The free weekends that they're giving, right? They're giving. I think this is more than the fourth time or something that they're providing this free weekend, and sometimes they give a free month as well. So please do check it out. So if you're going to subscribe, and mostly you're going to be extremely sorry for the noise. So my kid has another friend, and they are starting to get wild. So so please bear with me. So even if you take up the free weekend, if you subscribe to a course on Pluralsight, right, and if you're just going to spend only your weekends, you can easily upskill yourself in that particular language or tool or whatever you pick, just by learning during the weekends for free, right? So you will also save some money. I wouldn't say you'll save tons of money. This is going to be some money, and then but still you get a free way to upskill. So education is supposed to be free, but education is being a business. So make use of the quality things we are able to do when we are able to do. So I'm sharing the link of Pluralsight. So please do check it out. And thank you so much. So that will be all for today. And until the next monthly session, goodbye to everyone. Thank you. Have a great weekend. Bye-bye.
Yeah. Happy weekend and as well as happy Independence Day, guys.
Yeah, happy Independence Day. Wait, is it Republic Day or Independence Day? It's Independence Day.
It's Independence Day, Dinesh.
Sorry. Despite
Dinesh,
being
you are-
30, I still get confused with Independence Day
You
or
just-
Republic Day.
I think Dinesh is on high.
Okay. Okay, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye, guys.
Thank you all. Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.